In this web class, we are going to be talking about one tool or technique you could use to calculate your wealth. Now, in most cases, people calculate their wealth in terms of monetary figure. How much money do we have in our bank accounts? Well, when you speak to entrepreneurs, people like the Donald Trumps and the Richard Bransons of the world, is that it's not really based on how much money you have, but how much time does that give you? So what we're going to be doing in this web class is going through an exercise to help you calculate your hourly rate. And that's really calculating your value. I mean, how do you rate yourself? Do you rate yourself, say, £10 or $10 an hour, 11 or £15 or dollars an hour, or maybe 20? And that's something we'll discuss and help you go through the exercise in this short video. So let's start with a question. Why is property investing such a good way to build wealth? Well, in short, you already know that, or already know many people who invest in property to generate money. But it's not generating income or money per se, but it's actually generating a certain type of income, and that is passive income. So let's discuss what is active income, and then we'll discuss passive income afterwards. So generally speaking, is that how you calculate active income is how much hours you work. Basically, you're swapping your time for money. So the more hours you work, the more money you'll get. But generally, to calculate your income, the formula is how many hours you worked times your hourly rate will determine your income. And generally, that's not a good idea, because to increase your income, you have to either increase your hours or increase your hourly rate. Now, there's a problem with that, because in terms of increasing your hours, you've only got 24 hours in a day, just like everyone else. It is finite. There is a limit. So to increase your hourly rate, you could maybe spend more time, spend more years in your job and gain promotions, etc. Or maybe you're one of those people who swaps jobs every few years to get to the higher salary. But remember that your time is very limited. And so also with your increased hourly rate, you could do that promotion. You could get more stress, get the management job, but there's a point of diminished return whereby, the more hours you spend, and obviously the tax gets higher as you go higher in terms of your salary. It sometimes just doesn't make it more worth it, the amount of time you spend on your promotions and work, etc. So what happens if you are a contractor or if you're self-employed? It's the same like an employee. You've got the same issues. Again, as contractors, you're probably already working so many hours for very little pay to try and make things work well or worthwhile. And again, if you're self-employed. But fundamentally, you swap time for money. So here's a phrase, a very famous phrase, and that is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Because the problem is, people want more money and expect luck or something will happen to them. But that's completely false, because the truth is, if you want to have more money, and if that is you and you want more money, then you have to do something different. You have to grow, you have to get educated, you have to change your habits and your way of thinking. Entrepreneurs are just people. The only thing they do differently is they think and act differently. So with active income, let's go through an exercise with this. So you calculate your hourly rate by hourly rate, and you calculate how many hours you've worked, and that generates your income. But the truth is that it's the other way around. You should be calculating your hourly rate based on your income and number of worked hours. So this is powerful because this lets you understand more about yourself, and actually understanding your hourly rate will be able to help you grow your business in the future. And maybe we'll talk about that shortly. So here's an exercise. We're going to calculate your hourly rate. So forget you say, I know I'm earning my average income, I say £24,000 or $24,000. Forget that. We're going to calculate your true hourly rate. And that is basically calculating how much money you earned versus how many hours you have spent for that work. So To calculate this, the hourly rate, you can compare apples with apples. So if you're comparing on an annual basis, then calculate your annual income versus your annual hours worked. Or if you want to calculate on a monthly basis, that's fine too. Calculate your monthly income divided by your monthly hours worked. In this example, we're going to compare annual income versus annual hours. So let's say, for example, if your salary or average income is 24,000, that's the average salary in where we are in the UK right now. So that's on an annual basis. So we're going to calculate how many hours we spend on an annual basis, how many hours per year. So let's say, for example, if the average, or if you're working, say, 37.5 hours, then that equates to 1,800 hours per year. And I've calculated 48 weeks because typically people have around about 4 weeks off on holiday. Let's say, for example, you're driving 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes back. That's about 1 hour per day. We cannot forget that. This is for work purposes. So that's 5 hours per week, which is another 240 hours per year. And of course, the year in some professions, you may have to spend, say, 20 hours a year to maintain your continuous professional education hours, to maintain your certificates, etc. And if that's you, then you can calculate that. There might be some other things you need to calculate for work-related purposes, and if so, then calculate that. And in this case, calculate how many hours you spent for that activity per year. So let's work backwards. So the hourly rate is how much, in this case, annual income versus annual hours worked. In this case, it's 24,000 divided by the sum of the hours we spent working, which is 1,800, the hours we spent driving, 240 per year, and adding the 20 hours a year on top for studying. In this case, it equates to around about just over £11 per hour. Were you expecting that? If so, then that's fantastic. If not, it may come as a surprise. But you've got to think about all these things you spend for work. So let's talk about passive income. And passive income is so fantastic because passive income gives you leverage, and leverage is a great thing to have. Now, in terms of what we do, active income, you swap your time for money, and that's really, really, really bad. When you have passive income, it's actually you swap your money for time. You make an investment to get your time back, which is the opposite for your job, your just over broke job. So what is it? Is it about spending time with your family? Maybe you are at risk of losing your job, or maybe you don't have a pension in place, or maybe you've got a physical problem and you feel you're not getting any younger, and that's going to bother you, as it's going to be tougher and tougher to get the job that you want. So from now on, no matter what age you are, if you continue to slowly and surely build wealth, then you have the possibility of getting some of your time back. Now, if you push it more, then potentially you have the ability to get financial security for the rest of your life. So let's imagine that if you could retire 5 years early, if you could retire 10 years early, or 15 or even 20 years early, what is that worth to you? In this example, we are just going to pretend that you've got your first property. And these are kind of realistic figures anyway. So let's say, for example, you get your first property and you get gross monthly income, but you have to pay your mortgage, you've got to pay your letting agent fees, etc., and their commissions. So in this case, you get 200 net per month, but every month you spend 3/4 of an hour doing a few things, administration things like checking your bank accounts and checking you got paid, checking your statements and responding to emails from your letting agents. Then what would that be in terms of the calculation? Then that would be 200 divided by your 3/4 of an hour generates you around about £266 an hour. So how does that compare to your current hourly rate? It's likely to be more, and it's likely to be a lot higher in terms of your hourly rate compared to what you're earning right now. And that's okay. But this gives you an example of what the potential could be in terms of leveraging your time and the power of passive income. Now, there's a typical phrase that we have, and that is safe as what? It's safe as houses. Everyone needs food, clothing, and shelter. So assets generate you that passive income, and property is just one of these forms of assets. I mean, if you ask any large investor like the Richard Branson or the Donald Trumps of the world, they will tell you the same thing, that property is a great form of leverage. And also, not just that, in property, one of the great things about it is that you can build this business with starting just with yourself, because you can leverage other people's time, other people's expertise. Because often, if you don't make money, then you don't need to pay them money. If you are using a letting agent, if they're not renting the property out, then you don't have to pay them money. Of course, you've got other costs like the mortgages, but generally, you don't pay the people their commission if they don't make you money. Does that make sense? And this differs from a typical business whereby even if you don't make any money, you still have to pay the people their wages. You still have to pay their people their top-up pensions. You've got to pay their holidays. You've got the stress of handling staff and emotions and their promotions and the pay rises, all that kind of stuff. You don't need that. You don't have that necessarily with property. So, here's a question that's sometimes asked. Should I quit my job? Well, the short answer is no, because the truth is passive income systems take time, and it will likely take years before your income comfortably covers all your outgoings. So, like stocks or shares or starting a business, it takes time. So don't quit your job. Actually, having a job helps you because it helps you raise disposable income. It gives you the financial stability whilst you are building your fortune. So here's a phrase that we love to mention time again. It's work full-time on your job and part-time on your fortune. Does that make sense? So the actions for this is to actually go away and calculate your true hourly rate. So again, you can compare your monthly income versus your monthly hours you spent, or you can spend your annual income versus the annual hours that you spent. So do the exercise and calculate your hourly rate. It does not take long and it may actually surprise you. And it's something that you should do anyway, because as you build your systems and your hourly rate starts to grow, no matter what business you're in, knowing your hourly rate will help you determine when and how much you can pay and leverage other people's time and expertise so they can grow your business for you. Because once you get someone in to grow your business, you can step out of the business. So remember, own the business, don't be the business. Next is you got to get educated. Why? Because the truth is that education is the number one investment you can make. So you know the secret now to what the rich people teach the rich children, and that's building passive income. So what are you going to do? So remember the quote, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Do you want to take no action or little action and still expect things to change? Because that's insanity. Or do you want to step up, take action, and change your future and your family's future? So I hope that helps you, and we'll see you on the next video.